Greetings and welcome to our session. Yes, our session. That was a little kick drum action there. Our session this morning with Gregg Bissonette. I'm sure how many have not heard of Gregg Bissonette? Good, only a couple of you? So everyone else knows, legit rock star in our presence. Yes, he tours with Ringo Starr, yes, of the Beatles. So, yes, and if you remember back in the day, he played with David Lee Roth. He's played with Joe Satriani, Toto, Spinal Tap, and he's still alive. But we want to just welcome all the people who are streaming with us this session. And would you guys please welcome Gregg Bissonette.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's wonderful to be up here in Buffalo. And the old joke, my brother comes from Buffalo. I come from normal parents. Oh my gosh. We're not too far from the Catskills, so the humor might get kind of, corny. But anyway, it's great to be here. My topic for this morning's class is a little different than the topic for this afternoon's class, but I might merge them together a little bit. This morning, if you look in your programs, it's about being the best servant drummer you can be. And whenever I play in church, whenever I play anywhere, I always think about serving the Lord with my music, with my drumming, and the gifts that He's given me. And you don't always play in the circumstance where you'd think, okay, this is Christian music, this is secular music, how do I still serve the Lord? You always serve the Lord if it's in your heart to serve the Lord. So one of the best things that I've found about drumming in bands, worship bands, playing in a club band, playing on tour, playing anywhere, is to try to be humble and try to serve the music. And in serving the music, you're serving the Lord, especially when you're playing worship music. But one of the things that's tough to do as a drummer, that's a sideman drummer in a band, and as drummers, we're often the ones in the back, the ones that are kind of in charge of the tempo, but yet the tempo's never right. And the singer wants it faster, and the guitar player wants it slower. And how did we do it last Sunday? Or how did we do it last night? Oh no. I have found a way to really cut a lot of the mystery out of that. And nowadays, they have so many great little metronomes. I use one called a rhythm watch. And the rhythm watch allows you to program 30 songs, 30 tempos in. And I use in-ears. I use great in-ears called sensophonics. And one ear, my right ear, goes to the mix of the band. I want to hear in my in-ears. I like to have a wedge also for monitors and sometimes big old 18-inch subs for the kick drum. But I love to have in-ear monitors, sensophonic monitors that go to the whole sound. And my monitor mixer will mix that just the way I like it. So I hear just the amount of vocals, bass, guitar, keyboards, horns, loops, everything that I'd like to hear in that right ear. My whole left ear goes with a splitter into a little metronome, my rhythm watch. And before each song, I lean down and I advance it one. I have it right here actually on a drum stool. So I'll advance it ahead one song, and that'll be the tempo of the next song. And it really takes a lot of the guesswork out of it, because even if you're playing a song or the cymbals are still ringing, you can reach down and nobody hears it but you, and you get the next tempo. When everybody's ready, you count it off. That takes so much guesswork out of the equation, because our number one job as drummers is to pick the right tempo for the song and to hold that tempo for the whole song the best we can. Now, you can't get two metronomes to click together for more than 10 seconds and they start clicking apart unless they're midied together. But getting two people, a bass player and a drummer, or 3 people, a bass player, a drummer, and a guitar player, or 4 or 5 or 10. Or when I used to work with the Maynard Ferguson Big Band, 18 members of a band to feel it in the right place. It's our job as drummers to really set the tempo right where we think it's best. It might not always be what's on the CD or the MP3 or the YouTube version you heard of a song. It might be a couple of clicks faster. But in rehearsals, get together and find out with everybody, how does that tempo feel? Are you okay with that tempo? Sing the song in your head. Actually play the click and get your hi-hat moving. Does that feel like a good tempo? And when you finish, take a poll and say, did that tempo feel okay? And then once everyone's agreed on it, never visit it again. Because I'm telling you, man, you know how it can be, right? Never allow it to be, oh, gee, let's sit around and figure it. Was that too fast? Was that too slow? I'm feeling it more upbeat. Because every lead singer, I don't care if it's in church or if it's at a stadium, every lead singer will think, the people didn't seem as into it as they were last week or as they were last night. I think if we just speed it up a little bit, they'll be more into it. And so that's what we got to do. We got to speed it up. And it's our drummer's fault that nobody was, or maybe they were jumping up and down, woo, but they weren't jumping a foot off the ground. They were only jumping 6 inches off the ground. We got to speed it up, and that'll make everything great. That'll make things worse because people will start scratching their heads going, what song is this? I've seen bands that I love, and they get into that live show mode so far that they think they've got to speed their songs up like 10, 15 notches on the metronome slider. And you just, what song are they? Oh, they're doing that song? It's really our job as drummers to start the song where we know it should be and try to hold it there. Now, the B part of that equation, hold it there. I don't keep the click track running the whole song usually. I just get that song starter going. I count the tune off. I might play a measure or two, but after that, I'm just holding the groove in my heart, The other thing is, don't think too much. Terry Bozzio, one of my favorite drummers, I went to a clinic of his years ago, and a kid said, Mr. Bozzio, what do you think about when you're playing a drum solo? He said, think. I don't think, I just let go and I let God. Because we've been practicing for so long in our little practice rooms that when we get out there to play, it's not about this. This can be your enemy. And with tempo, it's really the case. If I'm playing a groove, say I count the tune off, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. I wonder if that's getting any faster. I wonder if it's slower. Why did the bass player just turn around and look at me? They're not really, last week they were really grooving. I wonder if it's me. And it all stems back from middle school. Everything stems back to middle school. You got a band director up there, okay, jazz band. They shouldn't be conducting anyway, but they, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, Johnny, you're rushing. Well, what does Johnny the drummer do? I better slow down. I better drag because I'm rushing. If he says, Billy, you're dragging. I better speed up. I better rush. How about Johnny? Think of where the tempo is instead of Johnny, you're dragging. Johnny, you're rushing. We've had this ingrained in us for so many years. I know I have with band directors in middle school, high school, college, pro bands, people in the band, leaders of bands, the ones that write the check, turning around and saying, it's too slow, it's too fast. And you better speed it up or you better slow it down or they're not going to sign the check. So anyway, try to really have confidence in your song starter and try to really play from your heart. Because when you overthink it, it's never good. The other thing I'd like to talk about for a second here is how much as drummers we have control over the dynamics. We have control over the groove, first of all, because our right hand is usually playing eighth notes. or a shuffle. Or we're playing backbeats on the snare. Not a lot of people can shake that. If you feel a tempo is at a certain place, that's where it's going to be. You're like clapping your hands in their ears loudly when you do that. You're laying down that backbeat. We have another tool. We have the bass drum. And that coupled with the hi-hat, we have a lot of control of the tempo. So it's our fault if things get off, if things speed up, if things slow down, if the tempo's not right. But we can take that because we're not usually the ones in the band usually that are writing the songs, that are writing the lyrics. Most of the time, the drummer is number one in charge of tempo. But the dynamics, I'd like to say that's number two. With our hi-hat, now this hi-hat, a lot of people don't give the hi-hat enough credit. The hi-hat is its own instrument. It's not just a part of the drum set, it's its own instrument. And if you go back to jazz, if you go back to Buddy Rich per se, that hi-hat, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, that hi-hat is like a finger snap in someone's ear. And we've got it right there with our left foot. Now I use these Zildjian cymbals that have a crinkled bottom. And they really, there's no air pocket that could come out of that at all. So I've really got a lot of control over the tempo and the dynamics with my left foot. But if I decide to play tight with the tip on top of the hi-hat, that might be a verse feel. If I decide to open it up a little bit and get it a little louder, that might be the B feel, the B section. But if I decide to open it up and really make it wash, when you write out a wash, you write out a 0 with a line through it. Plus is a tight hi-hat. Open with an O is open. But an O with a line through it is the wash sound. It's probably our loudest sound for hi-hat dynamics. Bill, you wouldn't have a mic stand, would you? Oh, thank you. It's challenging, though. I'm enjoying doing this one-handed. If I start playing the snare with my mic, we're in trouble. Sorry about that. Anyway, what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to keep my kick drum and my snare drum at the same kind of mezzo forte level, but I'm going to play tip of my stick. By the way, these are my new Vic Firth backbeat sticks. I have my own signature, my name, and then the word backbeat, because it's all about the backbeat. And it's got a stick grip on it. It's kind of like a beefed up 5B Vic Firth. I'm going to take the tip, which is a redesigned tip, and I'm going to play tightly on the tip. And when I want to accent, and this is something I could talk for hours about hi-hat, or I could teach any of you in a lesson and really get into the intricacies of the dynamics of the hi-hat. People think, oh yeah, the hi-hat, it's not so important, and they go like this, and then they play with the double pedal. Well, the hi-hat needs to be, you can have what's called a clutch that you hit, and it makes it come down, and you can close it, and then you hit it with your foot, and it opens up, and it's a hi-hat again. But it's really important to be able to use the hi-hat as a musical instrument for dynamics. So the tip will be one level of intensity. And then the shoulder of the stick on the part of the hi-hat that bows out, you slap that shoulder of the stick and you get a really clean open sound. And it's not to say that this kind of open sound is bad. But you see how that kind of mushes together? I prefer the really open. So what I'm going to do when I close it and I play the shoulder of the stick on the part of the hi-hat that bows out. I'm going to get a much louder tone as opposed to the tip sound. So now I'm going to do shoulder, tip, shoulder, tip. So I'm just by moving my wrist and getting that little cobra thing going, I'm accenting on the downbeats. That's all shoulder tip. Now, a lot of drummers say, oh, I don't have the chops to do that. That takes a lot of technique. Da, 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 da. Well, I'm not doing this. I'm doing shoulder tip, and I'm allowing the tip to bounce. Now, just to go over what I mean, because these are all your tools that you need to have to be able to serve the music, to be able to serve God, to be a servant drummer. You've got to have a really good fulcrum. One of the things about the fulcrum or the pinch on the stick, Vic Firth sticks have these American flags right here where it always seems right for me to have my thumb and my fulcrum. Oh, a headset. Wow. I'm going to look like Sammy Hagar.
Yeah. You want to use that?
I'm not so much the headset guy, unless it works well. Does it work?
It works.
Okay.
If you want to use it.
I'm ready to go. Let's go.
Nope, like this. Right behind you.
Okay.
There you go.
Everybody's working for the week. That's a lover point. Sorry. Hey, that sounds good. What's that? Hi, I'm your aerobics instructor.
You can keep that. Keep that. Yeah.
What's that?
And we put this in your head for your headset.
Oh my gosh.
Listen.
You got this in my head? Let me see here real quick. You guys are professional here at the chapel. How about a hand for the tech team? Man. So, if we could start off with a stretch. And then we're going to do a little dancing while we play. That's my Axl Rose imitation. Anyway, so the fulcrum right here, that pinch between the first finger, and for me, I've taken hundreds of lessons in my life. I love to study and take lessons. But what works for me is a grip where you're actually, I lost you. What works for me is a grip where I hold the first line of my index finger, the thumb, and then I get rid of that space. A lot of people in symphony orchestras play with that space, but they only play this loud. And I love playing in symphony orchestras, and that hole there works great for that. But when you're playing a backbeat, like Brenton Brown's drummer this morning, whoa, bop, all of a sudden, well, here's what happens to that hole. So I close that hole up, and this is just the grip that works for me. Thumb on that flag, first line of the index finger, close that gap, and this pinch right here is the shoulder tip. I'm bouncing those tips. I'm bouncing it with a closed gap. The fingers hang out because you don't want to look like you're having morning tea, but you need the fingers for the singles. Singles, the stick is pulled into the palm by the fingers, but doubles, it's all about the fulcrum. So what happens when you play a paradiddle? Paradiddle's a single and a double, isn't it? Right, left, right, left, right, left, left. playing right, left, right, right. So I need the